When was the last time you heard that term, direct object pronouns?
I think 8th grade.
8th grade, yes. Middle school, sometimes 6th grade. This concept in our native language in the United States isn't even presented till middle school. Cognitively speaking, it's very hard to understand this concept of direct object pronouns. It's not just pronouns like he, she, and stuff like that, or it, but direct object pronouns. So A, because it's been a long time since you've even heard this term, grammatical terminology in English, and B, because legitimately it's very abstract. Pronouns, using direct and indirect object pronouns and just identifying direct and indirect objects is an abstract thing anyway, and then you put it in Spanish. We're going to review in English what these things even are, because I don't know, even if you were able to define in English, in words, what a direct object is, chances are like 90% of the class would still not know what you're talking about, you know? Can anybody even define a direct object in words in English? It's a noun that...
It's a noun that is the thing that's being, like, the verb is just... Right.
Action is being done to. Right, yes, well... Probably we're still not clear. So that's why I'm not going to just define what a direct object is in words. Instead, we're going to throw a ball around. Because when we throw the ball around in Spanish class, in English, it becomes super obvious what the direct object is. And even though we're not talking about indirect objects today, you will quickly identify it, and I'll reference that example again when we learn about indirect objects in Spanish. Think about passing the ball around in class, and hopefully that'll be a nice kinesthetic reference to what a direct object is. Or think about giving someone money. That object verb is being done to. So let's take a look at what the subjects, the verbs, and the objects are in the following sentences. And you can just identify them with an S, a V, or an O. Underline them if you want, or circle them and mark them with an S or a V or an O. Let's do the first one together just so we know we're all on the right track. So numero uno, the subject is Sophia. So I'm just going to mark that with a little S. And our verb is but. And our object is tent. Muy bien. Okay, hagan números 2, 3 y 4, por favor. Número 2, subjects. Marcos and Lucia. You know me, I like to focus on one thing at a time. So, número 3, subject. I. Número 4, subject. Your. Okay, now let's do the verbs. Número 2, right. 3, will confirm. Y 4. Are getting, which is a contraction. We don't have that in Spanish, but it's obvious to us in English. Y, objects. Número 2, horses. 3, hotel, reservation. It's not really the hotel, it's mainly the reservation, right? It's just the hotel's, what type of reservation it is. Y número 4, just the passport, right? Okay. Ahora en español, chicos. Objetos de complemento directo. Direct objects. Okay, otra vez. Subject, verb, and object. Número 1, hagamos como el ejemplo. The subject para número 1 es el viajero. Una palabra de vocabulario. ¿Cómo se dice el viajero en inglés? The traveler. Y el verbo? Compra. Y el objeto? El pasaje. ¿Cómo se dice pasaje? No, es una palabra de vocabulario. Ticket. Muy bien, en este contexto. Ok, hagan los números 2, 3 y 4. Repasemos número 2. El sujeto es Manuel, ¿no? Número 3, sujeto Rodrigo, yo. Y número 4. Cuidado, chicos. Estoy es el verbo. Estoy llamando es el verbo, no? What is the subject for número 4? Who? Perdón. Who's the subject? No? Yo. Excelente. Yo. How do we know that? It's not written there. How do we know yo is our subject for número 4? Estoy. It's implied. So you have to be a little careful with these. It's more complex. It's less obvious than English. And this is just the beginning of why. All right. Vamos con los verbos. So número 4, estoy llamando. The entire thing is a verb phrase, the whole thing, because, you know, we just learned about the progressive, estar and llamando. Número 2, el verbo es invita. Número 3, el verbo es sacamos. Okay, ¿todo está claro? No preguntas? Everybody's okay so far? All right, objetos. Número 2. Los turistas. Muy bien. Número 3. Fotos. Y número 4. La gente. De viajes, no, la gente. So in número 2, we identified in número 1 that a pasaje is our ticket to Peru. To Peru is just a prepositional phrase. We're not going to worry about that. Número 2, what's our object in inglés? In inglés, los turistas. ¿Cómo se dice los turistas en inglés? Tourists. So objects can be things, but objects can also be people. And careful with this. This is like muy importante to note. When objects are people, make sure you identify this on your paper. Circle that little ah. This is called the object marker ah. This tells us that our object happens to be a person. And why is this important to know? What happened with number 4? We had a little breakdown with our subject, right? Our subject was implied. Sometimes we have a third person subject implied in our verb as well as a third person object in the sentence. And it's hard to identify who's doing the action to whom. Because if, you know, I love you, or I'm talking to you, or she is talking to her, or he loves her, those are third person objects and subjects. And it's hard to tell who's doing what to whom. So when we have people as subjects in Spanish, rely on that teeny little ah before our object when it's a person, and we can immediately clarify when it gets confusing in third person who's doing what to whom. Stay tuned. Número 3, our object fotos simply is what in English? Pictures, no? Durante nuestra vacación is just a prepositional phrase. Okay, that can come at the beginning or the end of a sentence just like in English. Okay, ¿todo está claro? Everybody with me? All right, so now we just went through all of that exercise and we haven't even really learned anything new. Now comes the new information. Now comes what you're going to do on the test, the supersite, and hopefully this point forward in La Clase de Español. Pronouns, pronombres. We're going to replace. Pronouns take the place of nouns most of the time in Spanish, every time in English. So now I want you to read through these sentences and identify what the pronoun, that's highlighted here, is referring to. Who it's referring to or what it's referring to. Por ejemplo, número 1, el viajero lo compra. Lo is our pronoun referring to whom? He. Actually, close. Lo is referring to el viajero. El pasaje. Remember, these are referring to direct objects. So lo is taking the place of our noun pasaje. Okay? So make sure you note that in your notes here. you can rewrite this. Just circle this maybe on your paper. Number 1, el pasaje a Peru. And indicate lo, and you can even squeeze it in there, lo. I should have had a section where you rewrote that, or you can just rewrite it, which requires a little more note taking, and you may not have time. Lo compra. Just whatever you do, make sure that you note that lo is referring to el pasaje because it's a direct object. And where does lo come in the sentence? Before the verb. Before the verb. So make sure you note that. Our direct object pronouns, and most pronouns throughout your 202 requirement, are going to come before your verb. Before a conjugated verb, just to clarify. Comes before the conjugated verb. Remember, compra is our verb. So what is el viajero lo compra saying in English? El viajero is what? This is el viajero. The traveler. The traveler. What's it saying? Número uno? You might have to refer to your original sentence on your paper. El viajero compra el pasaje de Peru. What's that saying? El viajero compra el pasaje de Peru? Right. The traveler buys a ticket to Peru. So when we replace el pasaje with lo, now it's the same. The traveler buys it. Exactly. And in English, there's no variation. Subject, traveler, buys, verb, object, it. It's the same. However, in Spanish, word order varies. And now we no longer have subject, verb, object. Number 1 is now subject, object, verb. So careful with that. So when people say X language is harder to learn than Y language, phonology, pronunciation, word sounds, letter sounds, diphthongs, things like that in English is very hard. It's hard to learn all the different variations that letters make when combined with each other in English. I mean, just think about words and spelling in English. It's un dolor de cabeza. So in Spanish, phonics is much easier. But then pronouns, things like this, in Spanish is much more difficult than it is in English because there's no variation in word order in English. It's subject, verb, object, whether it's a pronoun or not. But in Spanish, we have word order variation. So it makes this technically harder. But every language has its advantages and disadvantages. Okay, vamos con número 2. Los. ¿Qué refiere los? Or a quiénes? Los turistas. So we've omitted the personal a, and we replaced los turistas with los. And los comes where in what's our verb? Invita. So los comes where in relationship to invita? Before. Pronouns come before conjugated verbs, for the most part. Número 3. Rodrigo, yo las sacamos durante nuestra vacación. Las replaced what noun? Photos. Okay, so let's go back to número 1. Lo replaced el pasaje. That makes sense because el pasaje is singular or plural? Singular. Masculine or feminine? Masculine. We can tell it's masculine because why? El. So lo would be the masculine singular direct object pronoun, right? Does that make sense? Did you notice that? Maybe not, but now you do. Okay, número 2. Los replaced los turistas because it's singular or plural? Plural. Masculine or feminine? It's actually masculine, even though it looks feminine, right? It's actually masculine because why? What tells us the gender of a noun? The article. Los is our article for turistas. Anything ending in ista, artista, especialista, is always it's always masculine, even if you're talking about a guy. El artista Pablo Picasso. Los would be our direct object pronouns. So what's up with las replacing photos? What's our article for photos? Probably las. Why do you think our article is las for photos? Photo, even in English, is a shortened word for what? Photograph. Photograph. Fotografía is the official word, the full word for photos in español, which is why it's actually feminine. La sacamos. Y número 4. La replaced what? La. Repite. Agente. Another word whose gender isn't obvious until we look at our article, and it comes where? Before estoy. Or, miren chicos, it can also come where? We'll conclude with this. It can also come at the end of our participle. Do you have to do this on the supersite? No. Can you do it on the supersite? Of course. But do you have to? No. This one is, has variation in word order, but actually the second one that looks more complex is more like English. Estoy llamándola is saying what? I am calling her. That's very similar to word order in English, but grammatically in Spanish it's more complex because we actually attached our pronoun to the end of llamando, and when we did, miren, we had to put an accent mark on that A. Vamos a concluir aquí hoy, pero tienen más tarea en el supersitio que practica estos conceptos.